Half a day and welcome to the launch of Storyboard, a Journal of Pacific Imagery 19. The theme for this issue of Storyboard is Oceania Rising, but Storyboard itself has a very long history of bringing artwork, poetry, prose from the peoples of Oceania to the world. Storyboard has been published since 1991 by the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences Division of English and Applied Linguistics in partnership with the University of Guam Press. It is a great honor to be presenting this 19th issue before you today. My name is Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero. I'm the managing editor of the University of Guam Press, and I've had a great pleasure of working with the editor of this volume of Storyboard, Ms. Holly Rustick. She's actually been the editor of the last 3 issues of Storyboard. She is the CEO and founder of Grant Writing and Funding, a grant writing and coaching business, a best-selling Amazon author, and podcast host of the Grant Writing and Funding Show. She also writes novels under the pen name Erica Sand and is the current president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. Holly is also a former UOG English instructor and a very wonderful editor of this issue, and as I mentioned, the past 2 issues of Storyboard. Half a day and welcome, Holly.
Half a day, and thank you so much for the warm introduction, Lola. I appreciate working with you over the last 3 editions of the Storyboard. And I'm just really, really proud of this edition. And I just want to thank all of the contributors for your patience and just for your dedication to this issue as it's gone through the pandemic along with us, right? But we've pulled it out strong. So I'm really excited about our first ever virtual launch as well, and able to really pull people in from around the world to watch and experience this launch with us today. So thank you so much. Also, as we get into this, so the theme, Oceana Rising, like why did we pick this as the editorial board? You know, we came up with this in 2019, and we were really looking at all of the issues affecting the different, you know, the region here. And Oceana Rising, so yes, we're looking at climate change, but it's not only that, right? We're also looking at the protests happening in Hong Kong, the different social movements, the different political movements, what is happening actually in the region. And you guys have all, you know, expressed your views and your artistic just wisdom and knowledge and exploration in this edition. So I'm very proud of it. It's a beautiful edition, as you guys all saw on the screen as we came in, but yes, get your book. Without further ado though, I would like to really announce and invite or just welcome everyone that is here today. Specifically, I'd like to also welcome the Senior Vice President, Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez. Thank you so much for participating today and joining our launch. Hi, as you are always so supportive of the Storyboard. I'd also like to welcome, of course, underneath the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, Dr. Dean Selman, as you've been pivotal, of course, this Storyboard is under the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. So it's with great pleasure for me to welcome you today, as well as the Associate Dean, Dr. Charlene Santos Bambas. So thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, as our partnership with Lola, as you all heard, UOG Press, the Dean of RFK Library and the MARC, Monique Story, is also with us today. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'd also like to give out a big shout out to the division chair for the Deal Department underclass, Dr. Chris Garcia. So thank you so much for all of the support that you guys have given us. And I'd also like to, of course, thank the editorial board of Storyboard 19. And on that editorial board sits, of course, our UOG Press, Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero, Dr. Andrea Sant, Terry Perez, Verna Safra, and Dr. Raymond Anderson. So thank you so much for joining us this year. And special thanks to copy editors, Dr. Deborah Ellen and Joey Franquez and Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero again for helping copy editing for this edition. So thank you so much once again. And now I'd like to go ahead and get into actually the contributors. So a huge warm welcome to all of you guys out there who contributed your artwork, your prose, your short stories, your poetry, all of the beautiful expressions that you guys are going to hear today. So without further ado, we do have some contributors who would like to share excerpts of their writing as well as a look into their artwork today. So I'd like to first welcome Ms. Clarissa Mendiola, and I'm going to go ahead and read her bio so before she starts to read. All right, Ms. Clarissa Mendiola is a mother and poet who has lived in San Francisco for more than 2 decades. As a Chamorro woman raised in diaspora, poetry is the method by which she bridges the distance between her home island and where she stands. Clarissa's work can be found in various journals and publications, including As Us, Literary Hop, Omniverse, Storyboard, The Rumpus, and the Indigenous Literatures from Micronesia anthology from the University of Hawaii Press. She received a Bachelor's of Science from the University of San Francisco and an MFA in writing from the California College of Arts. She was a 2011 Hedgebrook Writer-in-Residence and currently teaches creative writing camps at a San Francisco high school, where she also serves as a communications writer. Please join me in a warm welcome to Ms. Clarissa Mendiola as she shares some of her writing with us today.
Hafide Todes Hamzu, thank you so much, Holly, for that intro. Hafide from San Francisco, where it's evening now. The sun has set over here, but it's so nice to hear the Godzu in the background. I heard it earlier when Lola had her audio on, so it's nice to hear that, those sounds from Guam. So I'm going to share a poem that was included in Storyboard 19. I wrote it for my oldest child, Felix, and it's called Golaflin. One of your first words was moon. Soon after mama, after dada, it was always moon, which you said out of the corner of your mouth whenever it appeared in the sky. At night, we crouched to see it out of our small kitchen window. We dimmed the lights for contrast, your sweet gasp and the fragrance of my milk on your breath. Growing you, I once found myself lost amid rolling red dirt hills, wearing dozens of small cuts on our body, proof we reconciled swordgrass together. We wandered for hours as you grew inside me, edging this body forward, willing all the laws of gravity to carry us to our meeting place. That first night on the beach, we swam together, soaked in moonlight, 2 thirsty crystals, our island's lagoon, a bag of waters, preparing to birth us both. Is it possible you remember the weightlessness? The sunsets, the salt water, the petrified coral forest, the butterflies swarming above us as we quietly passed ancient villages near the ocean, or the scene we took in with our whole bodies, standing at the edge of the earth, as if it was not enough to merely witness it with my eyes alone. Is it possible you carry those visions too, lumbered in your bones, the way we carry traumas, an heirloom laceration for every pain our ancestors bore? Some nights the moon's light feels brighter than sun, and I think, yes, you must carry flashes of life seen through my eyes, a moon, a gossamer compass, visible even in daylight. Thank you, Situs Maasi.
That's such a beautiful piece. Thank you so much for opening with it. Wonderful. So as we move to our second guest, yay, you guys can give a little claps. I like Akina, she's got her clap. So let's celebrate together. This is good stuff. All right, no, it really is really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations on the publishing of your piece. All right, so as we go to our next contributor, Joseph Taitano, and he will be reading Boxes. So Joseph P. Taitano II is a Guam native, undergraduate student of English literature at UOG, and a freelance writer. His writing struggles to find a natural voice for the absurdity of modern life in paradise. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for Clarissa for reading that beautiful poem. This is Boxes. It's something I wrote when I used to work, well, I guess I still work there, but I have a different job now, for a wholesale company, and I used to be the guy in the van driving around the island, and well, this is about that. Boxes, 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 packed tight into a container in a Manila port by men with taut, hungry muscles who furiously smoke Chinese cigarettes as they work, loaded onto a freighter and sailed clear across the Pacific. Inspected in Seattle by a fat Washingtonian with a cargo manifest in his hands, transferred by a crane operator, on sleepless methamphetamine and shipped ragged back west again to Cabras. There they are unloaded by another tired crane man, also methamphetamine, inspected against another cargo manifest we like to believe before, like magic, the container and the boxes find themselves in our gated warehouse lot. Last week, the magic reversed itself into our fence. Now we have to tie the fence with chicken wire to keep it from collapsing on itself. Maybe too, the magic had not slept in days. Maybe methamphetamine. This week, Frank and I are unloading the container. Boxes, boxes, boxes. During my tenure with the company, I have come to understand that Filipinos do not understand the idea of wooden pallets. Other distributors who are lazy because of self-interest and love of life bring in American products. Americans understand the idea of pallets because they are lazy through self-interest and love of life. American containers are unloaded with forklifts. At my work, Frank and I are forklifts. Maybe the Filipino loaders can't be blamed for not understanding pallets. Maybe they are unable to construct them due to a lack of quality hardwood trees on their islands. I can't imagine that a banana or coconut tree yields a very sturdy timber. I heard once that they do have mango trees in the Philippines, but who would use mango wood for pallets? Waste of mangoes. Then again, maybe it's the case that in the Philippines, pallets and forklifts are expensive, but men are cheap. The boxes and what is inside of them are cheap. When they arrive on Guam, after all that trouble, they are still cheap. It follows then that the labor Frank and I perform is cheap. And because it works that way in the boss's head, so we are. So it is that Frank and I must hand load the boxes onto pallets. Pallets made of quality maple or oak or balsa or something. We stack the boxes onto them and then wrap the boxes with shrink wrap. Not regular shrink wrap, the kind handed out after fiestas. Industrial strength shrink wrap, the kind used to balutan, the giant fish of legends. Boxes stacked 4 by 6 per row. That's 24 boxes per row. That's 4 boxes high before the pallet is too high to fit into the van, or 96 boxes per pallet. By the time we have cleared out the container, Frank and I will each have moved something like 2,000 boxes back and forth. This is my job, essentially, moving boxes back and forth. Frank likes to chat as we move boxes. Today, he's chatting about massage parlors. You ever been to one? He asked me. I never have. I knew a guy who used to go all the time. Every week he was down hanging out at the massage parlor. Frank can weave a story between manual labor and Copenhagen tobacco so deftly that his creations are waterproof, airtight. We hold them above our heads to keep dry in the rain and cool in the heat. I'm always struggling to catch my breath and struggling to think of how I should respond to Frank. Not that the boxes are very heavy. There are just so many of them. Problem was, Frank continues, he never had money for a girl, but he had food stamps. The shudder of my shoulder interrupts his excitement as it pops rudely in its socket. We both notice, but Frank is polite. He ignores me as he continues. So what does he do? He goes to the massage parlor with a case of corned beef, like he's gonna pay off Mama-san with that. And do they accept it? They don't, Frank says, suddenly becoming sullen. He tosses me another box and then another as he keeps silent count. 24, 25, 26, pausing now and then to spit. We go on like that for a while before I work up to the resolve to ask, what happened then to him? Frank says to me simply, he was sad after that. I can tell that Frank feels deeply for the corned beef man, though he does not have the words to show me. We finish loading up our pallets, move our pallets in the van, lock up the warehouse and get ourselves moving. We take a left at the intersection and make our way towards the first delivery. Today the sky is mercifully overcast. When the sun is out, the pavement bakes us while we work. Our shirts come half up and our minds stay fixed on the topic of shade. When the sun is hidden behind the clouds, we pray that it stays overcast and does not rain. When it starts to rain, we get wet, and so do the boxes. There is a hole in the roof of the van, and this is generally why we get wet. It is a shame that the van does not have a proper roof, does not have a working aircon, does not play music when we turn on the stereo. We complain about it daily between ourselves and our customers, but never to our boss. So nothing ever comes of our complaints. Really, the action is more of a way to pass the time. Conversation is the only thing Frank and I can do in the van, and there's never much to talk about. Sometimes, when we drive through the winding roads in the South, it gets so quiet that we start to fall asleep at the wheel. Our eyes get heavy on the curves of those mountain roads, and we start to swerve at the sound and the sight of the ocean. The weight of all those boxes sits just behind our driver's cabin, waiting to suddenly come to a stop. Frank, sensing this, says, "Let's pull over for a while. It looks so nice down here." He signals for the shoulder of the road, and we do, and it is.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful piece. Very descriptive. Just wonderful piece. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I like all the hand claps we're getting in the corner. Great. All right. So as we move on to our next contributor, we all have some artwork to share from Tanya D Mcdonald. And Tanya D Mcdonald, she is, or McDaniel, sorry. She's actually one of my former students, so I'm really excited about this. And she may not look like it, but she was born and raised in Guam. She is currently studying for a Bachelor's of Art at the university. Recently, she has been exploring college art as a form of creative expression. She enjoys the act of taking an object out of its original context and reimagining it to create new meaning. And you guys are going to see exactly what that looks like right now as Lola shares her screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rustic. So yeah, I've done some collages for Storyboard 19 here, and I'm just gonna read the captions for them. They're rather informative. Indigenous people face the direct effects of climate change, and displacement from their homelands negatively impacts their culture. The people of Micronesia in particular face the threat of rising sea levels overtaking their islands. This is my piece, Far From Home, by the way. And this is my piece titled Ocean Rising. Caption reads, New Atlantis Colorized. And then my final piece, Submerged, reads, Pacific Islands struggle to deal with the disposal of waste due to rapid Western modernization that introduced them to non-biodegradable luxuries and goods.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing that. Yay. No, really good. And yeah, that was really interesting and innovative artwork, you know, that we really talked about. So yeah, it was really, really cool to see the expression on that in a different way. Well done. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce our next contributor, Carlos Anderson. So Carlos C. Anderson graduated from Wake Forest University with a bachelor's in philosophy. He served as a staff writer and blogger for the Old Gold and Black newspaper. He has published in the College Literary Magazine, 3 to 4 Ounces, and placed in both local and national essay contests. He took second place in the UOG Press Literary Essay Contest in 2012 and third place in the Freedom from Religion Foundation Essay Contest in 2011. In 2016, he was selected as a fellow in the 2016 Cape New Writers Fellowship for his screenwriting. And he's going to be reading an excerpt from his short story, which is actually an excerpt from a chapter of a book you're working on, right, Carlos?
Yes, it's a novel I'm very nearly finished with. And like Clarissa, I'm on it's the cocktail hour here. So yeah, I'll read 2 pages, just not to tax your attention span too badly. It's called Moorings. And yeah, let's just start. They were sailing on a broad reach, running fast, a good omen for this last leg of their journey. Her father was still in his bunk. When he woke, he'd be hungover. Anytime he needed an excuse to drink, he pronounced that a batch of his tuba needed to be tested. Mostly he traded the sap liquor for dried goods, but he always held some in reserve for himself. Serena hugged the catch around another aisle. These were man-made islands of silicone and tempered plastics. They were created like the volcanic eruptions that spawned real islands, only inverted. Instead of boiling magma spewing upward and cooling into landmass, The aisles were dripped from a phalanx of helicopters. The hot polymer met the water with a sizzle and stiffened into a buoyant foundation. Most people could only see the tragedy in diaspora. Oslo Dryberg, a Russo-Austrian shipping tycoon, saw dollar signs. He shook hands with a plastics magnate, and together they invented fresh real estate. After the North Korean missile struck Guam, radiation drifted to the surrounding islands. People needed somewhere to hole up until the levels dwindled down. These isles fractured into distinct districts: housing, business, commerce. There was also the red light aisle with its neon signage blinking through the night. She'd caught her father sneaking their dinghy out in the early hours, only revving up the outboard motor once he'd paddled out of earshot. Serena, fearing awkwardness, pretended this went unnoticed. Aisles were moored to the seafloor by steel links thick as the base of banana trees. Anchors were teethed into limestone or fish hooked into a crevasse. Serena and her father entertained no long-standing moorings. Their home was a full sail, the pitch of tide beneath them. Even the boat they were sailing was temporary. A merchant in Palau had bought a cat schooner in Fiji. It was their job to deliver it. After that, they'd find a new boat to ferry. The only mooring lines that persisted were the ones that extended between them. Frank clambered up from below deck. His shoulders were stooped and his eyes drawn into seams. He pressed a fist to his lips. "Surf's real choppy today." "Uh-huh," Serena said. Frank shoved a mug into her hand. "Hold this for a second." Then he leaned over the midships bollard and retched into the ocean. "Shit, we're gonna have to clean that off before we deliver this." Serena returned the mug to him. "Great." He wiped the crud from his lips. "You got the Genoa out?" "What do you think?" Serena said, coiling a few lengths of halyard. Frank held his hands up, surrendering. "All right, Skipper." He sipped his coffee. "We on schedule?" "Ahead, actually." Frank nodded blearily. "Well, I'm gonna get a little more shut-eye then." "We're coming up on a checkpoint. You have to be up here." Christ, I didn't know we were that far ahead. Although Serena could captain a ship as well as any grizzled seafarer, she was only 15, too young to apply for a skipper's license. Boats couldn't cross between US zones without one. The zone's curtain rose into view. These were vast swaths of cabled netting hung between floating pylons. It banded the horizon in a strip of twilight. They were guarded by US agents who policed American occupied zones. And I'll leave it at that if that's a nice enough teaser.
That is a good teaser. And if you guys want a little bit more of that, it is in the storyboard. So you can definitely check it out. Thank you so much. And can you just,
more.
kind of, yeah, can you also kind of comment too, like what was the thought process behind the writing in the book?
Sure, yeah, it was, the way I explained to people is, it's about property dispute in the macro and micro. So it's, on one hand, it's about, so the beginning of the book is that this, we've experienced it before, but the North Korea threatens that they're going to launch this IRBM, but in this case, it actually happens. And so this region reorganizes politically after that. And for a time, they have independence and they negotiate this deal with the US. And that region becomes like an analog of kind of Northern Ireland, where there's two sides kind of jockeying for, this plot of land. One is the indigenous people and one is, interest in foreign power. And then the more personal side of it was about being a child of divorce. How do you negotiate, the rift in that relationship? How do you even locate yourself? There's always these, in a way, metaphorically similar concepts of allegiance. I belong to, here or there, this person or that person. So that was the main thrust of the book. And then hopefully it's a fun read in between.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
And yeah, like
Yes.
we said, there's definitely more of that in the Storyboard 19 edition. And then we look forward to your book when you release it. Please do keep us updated on that.
If it happens. Thank you. Yes. Thanks for having me. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. But yeah, a lot of it's interesting, right? Especially as we're in 2020 to see kind of how a lot of these pieces are still, they're very current. They're contemporary topics and contemporary explorations of how, you know, we're processing through everything, right? So I really like it. I know just a little call from Lola too. She had mentioned that, you know, this is really, it's an archive of, you know, it turns into history. It's a historical archive really of what, you know, how we're interpreting contemporary time. So I really do appreciate this entire edition. Thank you. All right, now we'd also like to say thank you so much. So now I have Miss Anisha Taisipik, and she also, so she's here to share one of her pieces. She is a 2006 UOG graduate in the English and History programs. She is currently a language arts teacher at St. Francis Catholic School, and she encourages her students to continue writing, reading, and learning just as she does. And what's really good about this, before I let you go on, is one of her students also was selected for this edition. Unfortunately, she's in her exams right now, so she's not a part of the launch. But I just wanted to give a special shout out because you have always encouraged your students to apply for the storyboard, to submit their pieces, and it's just, you've been so active in that, and we just appreciate it so much. We've seen a lot of middle school students actually, you know, get accepted into the storyboard edition, just like one of your students this year, and you know, Miss Kiana Manabusin. So yeah, so we just wanted to give a special shout out to her and to acknowledge that she's also in this piece as an 8th grade student. So yeah, so thank you.
Well, currently Kayana is, she's a freshman now because it was last year that we were doing it. But I'm actually, there are three of my former professors on this Zoom call right now. So I'm a little nervous too about that. I also, part of my getting my students to write, I had to model it for them. Because, you know, that's the best way to get students excited about it. So I had to write too, and that's why I ended up submitting to Storyboard, because they were telling me, oh, Ms. Teispick, you should do it, you should do it. So I'm nervous. I'm actually very humbled to be included in this incredible pool of talent here. I struggled which piece to read, and I have my daughters here. One of my other daughters has also been, she was published in Storyboard 17 and 18 also. So she was the one who told me this is the one that I should read because the tone was better. So, okay, here we go. I am angry. Thoughts tangled in my mind, tongue-tied words mangled, too many words dangled, unsaid. I am upset, overlooked by everyone, overworked and exhausted, overwhelmed, undone. I am tired, waiting for my turn, wondering how I got here, wishing for more, unfinished. I am lost, pleading for patience, praying for strength, promising to try again, unsure. I am frustrated, visions of yesterday fading, versions of history changing, voices of tomorrow choking, unfulfilled. I am hurt, ambition failed and voided, absolution wasted away, admiration mournfully drowned, unreachable. I am panicked, losing to the rising ocean of modernity, lamenting the defeated intellect of we, languishing the loss of self, unseen. I am resentful, shackled to a country not willing to see me, seeking guidance only to be awarded slivers of hope, shared pains across Oceania, alarming despair, unappreciated. I am here. Commiserate with me, not for me. Compromise with me, not about me. Come to me, not against me, undeterred. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful piece. Yes, thank you for joining us. All right, so now we're also going to go to our next contributor. And before I go to that, I also like to thank Mr. Bruce Warner, who has joined us as well. And he has done the layout and the design for the Storyboard 19 edition, actually for many editions, but this one specifically. So I just want to thank him and welcome him as he's joined us. Yay, Bruce, in the comments. All right, so now we also have, let's see, Dr. Evelyn Flores, and she has a piece, The Last Moon, and she's going to be reading that today, or Last Night's Moon, sorry. So Mrs., here it is. Dr. Evelyn Flores is a Chamorro writer and a professor of literature and Chamorro studies at the University of Guam. She dedicates her research and creative activities to preserving and publishing the stories of the indigenous people of Guam, as well as the broader geographic area of Micronesia. Her own poetry has been published in both local and international publications as reports of the problems of rising sea levels increase and as the militarization of Guam intensifies. Her attention as a scholar and writer has turned to how literature can insert itself to make a difference in the discussions and the outcomes. And I just think that is so spot on and what this edition has really done and has encompassed. And I just really appreciate your piece, Dr. Evelyn Flores, Last Night's Moon. Welcome.
Thanks, Holly, and thank you again to all those who worked together despite everything we're going through to get this publication out. So thank you for that. The Last Night's Moon is one of the pieces that I love. And for those of you who write out there, you know that there's some stuff that you write that you love, some stuff that you're trying to love, and then some stuff that you just stuff away. And this is one that I've come to love, but it keeps going through changes as I work on it. And so I did not get a chance to pick up Storyboard, so I'm reading from my draft, so I apologize for that. As I read, if you would listen for 4 voices, because the poem has 4 voices going through. The first voice is the voice of the writer struggling about what and how to write. The Chamorro writer, the indigenous writer, struggling with what and how to write, considering that in 25 years, we will see cataclysmic changes to our island and to the Marianas and Micronesia. The second voice is the voice of the scientist. And the scientist is affirming the indigenous perspective, the view that we need to protect our environment because in our environment lies our health and well-being, and also warning that we have to be proactive about protecting that environment. And I apologize to the scientists because there's some large words in there, one in particular, and I'll do my best to pronounce it. The third voice is the voice of the maternal. In Chamorro history, the maternal has been a powerful agent in preserving culture. And so the maternal is talking about the importance of the environment and also expressing anxiety about the future. The fourth voice is the voice of the future, the voice of the daughter, Ihagahu, the blood daughter, right? The blood child, through whom in ancestral times, the wealth of the culture was passed down through the matrilineal. And so the question of what will this daughter have as a result of our actions today? So here it is, and I will do my best because I'm reading the rough draft before Bruce and I went through it. So this is a draft with all the changes, but I think we can make it through. Here we go. Last Night's Moon. Hatsa. When last night's moon, Ipilan, stretched shadows across the patio, breathed silver, laid darkness down. When this morning's Napu crashed the beach, scattered ghost crabs scrambling, wrapped jutting rocks, ocean scent, Denial came easy. That someday it'd all be gone. Never, ngayon. Sunset's light show blaze the dark, jagged red, thrust orange, yellows dazzling, streaked bronze, notes of gold, strummed strings of sky. Could these be eternally the last? No, munga ahi. Some days, guahanadia. I write like that though. Adzu hutuki papa. Pretending beauty, immortal body, time's green jungles, eternally. To play the fool is easy enough. Here, everything goes just like that, rooting down again into earth. Yesterday's golai hagunsuni, today's truant furry leaf vines, noon salsa, tossed under tangan, shoot up tall, gangly plants. Nature's willfulness will triumph, will outlast our crass evil, will return to itself with a generous vengeance. Fu'una will prevail. But then again, 5,000 Marines are on their way. PDN, CNN, and HLN blare the news, the luscious dying of the coral jungle, the whale swimming endangered around us, islands swept off the map, weeping, sea levels rising, a ravaged Philippine coast reeling in the demon winds. Typhoon Alley's moved. 6 to 8 hardcore typhoons hit, mentras mahohot nui pabu, inexa agaga bololukbuk, irizeno kadunlisto, pues edzuna huhunguk ireju, we interrupt this broadcast typhoon condition 321, tie down the house, nail up the shutters, secure the yard debris, barbecue todo gihalumi freezer, sempre matai power. Kmart garbage cans, our typhoon water tanks. Po luhud zungi la udza kaderu ibat dimaskasea hafa until the city water returns, until the raging winds passed. Where'd they go, those typhoons? Not a single serious one since 2002. We live nervously in this eerie calm. Something is moving, huge and unseen. We are no longer where we once used to be. No compass to secure us. We have become the birthing place of monsters who gather awful speed, power, size, traveling the final 1,500 miles of the Pacific to slam into the Philippines, gut Japan, flood Taiwan, 200-mile-per-hour winds, howling destruction. There, beyond the radar of our viewing, something has silently changed, determinedly, menacingly. In the Earth's rage building, there is no choice to write as if paradise were not endangered, given the moon, the ocean, the sunset, to pretend that beauty will prevail, that the thousands of years old rhythm of the islands will continue undisturbed. We cannot any longer write like that. And so we go at it differently, stutteringly, determinedly to turn the tide. Hugwa, are your dreams filled with a beach? Guahan, Sunday Post, October 2, 2016. Guahan, approximately 1,200 miles from the edge of the Coral Triangle, the world's most diverse coral reef region. Mine are miles and miles of driving across white stretches of sand and blue sprawling out into a line of cobalt. Our relative proximity means our reefs teem with life, with more than 1,000 species of reef fish and almost 400 species of reef-building corals. Our ancestors dreamed of such a beach. As such, our roughly 42 square miles of nearshore reefs are vital, social, cultural, biological, and economic resource. Their birthing place, Isagua, coral bleaching caused by warming waters due to climate change, where the world began, combined with other stressors such as pollution, sedimentation, coastal development, algal blooms. These giant canoes they built skimmed the ocean. It is unclear whether many of the island's reefs can remain viable in coming decades without major and sustained interventions, and returned to their birthplace thousands of years ago. Homecoming. Coral polyps, the tiny animals that fuse together to form coral colonies. They voyage seeking where plankton died into new worlds, which in turn create the massive living structures we know as coral reefs that contain tiny algae marine plants called zooxanthellae. And Fu'una stands guard, her body stretching up into the sky. These photosynthetic algae, sometimes affectionately referred to as zoox, supply corals with food, oxygen, and the pigments. Do not be deceived. Where the line of rock ends is only the beginning that decorate reefs in varied shades of pink, mauve, and green. The lightning rod connecting to her brother's body. When corals are subjected to periods of increased water temperatures and intense sunlight, they respond to these stressors by ejecting their zoox. My daughters will remember such a beach, thus losing the vital food source in their vibrant colors. They will dream about it in hyperbolic time. Although not dead, they turn bright white, ghosts of their healthy state. Their feet will feel the grains of sand. These bleached corals can recover if the stress dissipates, nerve endings rooted upward to their soul. But they are weakened, hungry, and vulnerable to other threats such as pollution and disease. It will be what they will dream about. Maldives, Kiribati, remote Hawaiian Islands, other tropical coastal areas have drawn global attention to the devastating effects of climate change on coral reef ecosystems when they are searching for a place to stand. It is estimated that by 2030, 60% of the world's coral reefs will be gone. So, right, while there's a chance. Once upon a time, there was a beach, pristine white grains of sand, where the ocean shelf dropped into the silence of a deep blue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Flores, for that wonderful, powerful piece of advocacy and just, really to really start thinking about these things and the effect that they have. So I really believe that that piece is very influential in people being able to see the real issues going on. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now we're going to be looking at artwork again. So we have Miss Diana Safiko, and Diana, she loves Jesus and hopes that all these efforts point back to his goodness in her life. Diana is studying chemistry and biology as a dual degree with a minor in sociology. The storyboard entries were inspired by the human ecology course with Dr. Johnson. She loves her family. And let's go ahead and share her piece right now, her artwork, and she's going to go ahead and read the caption and also let us know what inspired her beyond what I just read.
Hello, so this is my piece called Herenciata, which is a Chamorro word or Chamorro sentence to say that this is our inheritance. God created an awe-inspiring masterpiece that our ancestors protected and handed down to us. We're passing it down to future generations, polluted and contaminated. It is time to take it personally and that we take action. That's it.
Thank you so much. It's such a powerful piece. Wonderful. It's just how you're really drawn into it and how the light and everything. So wonderful job. And then all of, if you really look deep into the piece, those of you who have the edition, you can see the trash and the plastic and the other things in water and how that's really looking at, what's going on in our oceans. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now we also have another writer that will be reading. Mr. Edward Asfal, a junior, is currently an undergraduate student working toward a degree in English and with an emphasis in literature at the University of Guam. He aspires to create major works of literature for the Chamorro, Pacifica, and queer community. Thank you so much and he will be reading 2 of his pieces. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Edward Ekfaji, and I just want to say that I'm really humbled to be joined by some familiar faces and by some of my own professors, and it gives me such a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to, if I have not met you, to meet you through your pieces. So going into it, I have a piece, my piece, Anita and Fatgasi. I wrote this out of a self-conversation, as a lot of my pieces are, about empathizing and sympathizing the ocean and the waters that like vein and circulate throughout all of the Marianas Islands, and just really trying to reach out to them and what they've gone through. So here's Anita and Fatgasi. She's beautiful, absolutely beautiful, a deity of cleansing. If she spewed all the little bits of plastic bottles onto my front yard, of microplastics into my karu, of dead fish and organs into my own, I would not mind it at all, or if that were me. Of the times I found it on the ocean floor, of the times I thought it was less important than a dead body washed ashore, lifeless, of the times I swim and forget I am of the ocean floor, a body in which I cleanse my own, how my ancestors cleansed in her rivers, their body, mind, and soul. I cleanse my soul, every swim and sway in her, to realize and understand that without a live body to pick out her guts, she would still have to spew them and heave and wheeze like an old man who coughs and smiles at the same time. I would not mind it one bit if that were me instead. How ungrateful I am to sway in her and believe that the waist on her waist, on which I hug every chance I get at coast, is not the same as pulling out a dead body to shore. If anything, it is the opposite, for I can see her coughing less and smiling more. She's beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and she wants to cough it all out. She wants to cleanse, the deity of cleansing, so let us cleanse. All right.
Thank you.
So that's
and you're going to read your next piece as well?
And yes, please, thank you. And my second piece, I'm just gonna find it, is, I believe, Abandoned Banyan Tree. Okay. Okay, I wrote Abandoned Banyan Tree out of just like a deep thought of self-conversation of, I guess, what I want to see in spirituality, in the future of spirituality, and not just what spirituality can do for me, but what I can provide for it for the future of concepts, of indigenous concepts of spirituality. Okay, Abandoned Banyan Tree. Come grace the Nunu tree vines, curly landline cords. Summon the wisest, the spiritual, the talented. My dad, a proud singer, a humbler man, a true cantot, made music that fuels joy, the fire that keeps barbecues alive, a side-eye that cracks you up, sings us a song. My papa, Talik, grinning further than a Sanahi moon, milky crescent, shines brighter than his darkest days in Vietnam, keeps himself laughing, tells us a joke. My grandma, I have never met, but as a compliment for everyone, inspires me to do the same. She lives on in me, her non-allow attitude, gives us a compliment. My other papa, the dancer that dances the cha-cha at every fiesta, lost both his legs, took life as an adventure. What a way to live. Dances us the cha-cha. My ancestors, Tauta Motna, believed all life came from here. That kismet creation of earth, of the earth's crust and Kana, soul, an explosion of souls grants us a home. Dinner table, Paseo Stadium filled, stripping myself of my own amnesia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful pieces. And just the advocacy within there too. You know, there's so much that is said and there's such creative pieces. So it's really nice. And thank you also for just kind of introducing your pieces and what led you to write them. So it's nice to have these launches where we get to see a little bit behind the scenes, right? So thank you. Yeah. And then we also have Cristiana Cachocho. She is here as well. And she will be reading a piece as well. So, sorry, let me just get to your, there we are. So Cristiana, she received a Bachelor's of Arts in English with a literature emphasis from the University of Guam in 2020. So big congratulations to a 2020 graduate here. Well done. She was also a former student of mine, so I'm really excited with her here to see two of my former students. She is a resident of Canada, Barrigada, and she is a Chamarita who loves Guahan and Hinamno. I'm sorry, I'm saying this wrong. Hinanao. Can you say that correctly? So I might be totally mispronouncing that.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Christiana. So the title of my piece is Ekangak. So in Chamorro, it means to listen. Okay, so I'm gonna start. In my island, the voice of the jungle is silent, long enough to hear the chanting of the trees as the wind and branches dance to the melody of the birds. In my island, the voice of the pool is silent, filled with the sound of water droplets trickling, as the image of my ancestors is mirrored, when leaning forward to see my reflection. In my island, the voice of the cave is silent, as their voices echo through the art on the walls, reenacting my people, retelling my history. In my island, the voice of the people is silent, but if you listen close enough, the language will sound like a rhythm of a tune, creating a song for the island to sing.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Such wonderful work that we have today. And I believe we have touched all the contributors here. And I just wanted to thank you for those of you who have attended. And before we close out though, do not leave yet, you guys. We have some wonderful things to announce, but I just wanted to say once again, it's a wonderful edition. It's my honor to serve as editor this year. And I hope that you all receive your copies of their journal. And then Lola is gonna let you guys know where you can pick up some more if you'd like, or for those who are watching on Facebook, if you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get my hands on one of these books, because you do, it's beautiful. Then she's gonna tell you where to pick it up. So once again, I just wanna thank you, all of the contributors. It's a beautiful edition. You should all be super proud of. And yes, thank you once again for joining us today. I'm gonna hand it back over to the UOG Press Executive Director here, Ms. Victoria Lola Leon Guerrero. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. And it's been such a pleasure working with you these last 3 years. And so we're definitely going to miss you, but hopefully you can submit some of your writing. That would be amazing. But as Holly had mentioned, Storyboard 19 is now available for sale. And so I'm actually going to share a flyer. You can purchase Storyboard 19 for $10 at the following local locations: the UOG Triton bookstore on campus, bestseller bookstores both at GPO and the mall, Faith bookstore in Mighty, and then we have it already available on Amazon. For those who are off island, we will ship it straight to you. And we're working on our own e-commerce site where we will have it available in the new year. Triton Bookstore also has an online store, and as soon as the item is created on that online store, it'll also be available on our website. Some really exciting news as well is that definitely in response to these changing times, we recognize the need for digital versions of Storyboard to be more accessible and available. And so we are working with the University of Guam's Triton Bookstore and our integrated marketing team to make, we're starting off with the first 10 issues of Storyboard. We're gonna have them available on Red Shelf for purchase starting in the new year. So they're working on that right now. And then Storyboards 11 through 19 will come shortly thereafter. And I also want to give another shout out to Bruce Warner, who has joined us today. Thank you again, Bruce, for joining in. Bruce actually has done the enormous feat of designing all of those 9 issues. So it's also been a great pleasure to work with Bruce over all these years, and you know, keeping Storyboard alive and going. And you know, all of your voices and those of you who have contributed to multiple issues of Storyboard, as Holly said, and I can't emphasize enough, you help us to remember these critical moments in our lives. And so with that said, I'd like to introduce the editors for the next Storyboard, Storyboard 20. So again, as I mentioned, Storyboard has been published since 1991, and it is now entering the milestone of its 20th issue. And so it has a team of brilliant editors. We have Carol Simpson Warner, Dr. Andrea Sant, and Teresita Perez, all from our wonderful English department, who will be leading the charge for Storyboard 20. And Terry is going to join us for a few minutes to talk about the call, which I will also share on my screen.
Good afternoon, Guam time, everyone. Just a few words about Storyboard 20. I know we were initially asked to come up with a statement to kind of discuss the 20-year milestone, and I thought, oh, what do we say? We have a call, but I have a 20-year-old. And so for me, when I look at the span of his life as a 20-year-old, understand that every year of his life was incredibly different, incredibly defining in terms of who he is as an entire human being, and with the future ahead. And if I think about Storyboard and what Storyboard 19 is and what Storyboard 20 will be, I want to extend that thought of it's going to be a different year, it's going to be a different issue, and who knows what will happen. And this is related to the call because our call is themeless, and we want to treat this submission as basically coming from the voices of the Pacific. What do you have to say to us, and what is it that you find needs to come out and be heard and be shared? And so the call, you have 1 month, January 15th is the deadline. You have 1 month to think about, to submit a piece. The call, as Victoria Lola said, is currently on the UOG Press, and so all the information is there. So it's pretty much whatever you want to say, whatever you want it to be, and that is our theme for Storyboard 20. So I think that's it. Yeah, again, January 15th, deadline. Get everything, get your P's and Q's in.
Eva, thank you so much, Terry. I think that's wonderful context to imagine the progression of a child's life over 20 years and think about how much Storyboard itself has grown. And so thank you for reminding us of that. So please, 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 all the contributors who are, you know, in this issue, and if you know other writers and artists, please encourage them to submit. Again, you have until January 15th. All of this information and information about all of our books can be found at uog.edu/UOG Press. And then if you add another /Storyboard, you'll find the call for submissions. You can also email the Storyboard editors at storyboard@triton.uog.edu. And if you have any questions about the press, you can also contact us at uogpress@triton.uog.edu, or follow us on Instagram and here on Facebook. Our searchable name is UOG Press, and we will continuously bombard our feeds with reminders about the call for submissions. Also, for writers who are near done with a major piece of work that you would like to publish, we have an amazing opportunity. The deadline is also on January 15th. UOG Press is hosting a writing retreat at the Malesu Seaside Airbnb. It's 4 days of uninterrupted large writing blocks that with a few other writers, and the goal is to take a book that you are almost done with and bring you to the finish line, give you that time and space you need to complete a major piece of work. And so please also visit our website under our projects page for the application for this retreat, and just stay tuned. There's lots of wonderful opportunities happening in our community for writers, and we hope to see more and hear more from all of you. So Sidos Ma'asi to all who joined us today, to our wonderful administrators for being here, and of course to all our contributors and our editors for making this possible. We hope to see you again next year. Contributors, please stay on for just a moment. Everybody else watching online, Esta Ajos.